Have you ever heard of Vorkuta, Russia? It's a town that defies logic, and it's home to 70,000 people. Virtually everything about Vorkuta screams, "Don't live here." For starters, it's nearly 100 miles north of the Arctic Circle, making it the easternmost town in Europe. With no roads in or out, the only ways to reach or leave Vorkuta are a 40-hour train ride or one of the 2 to 3 weekly flights, assuming they're unimpeded by blizzards. During the winter, temperatures can drop as low as -58 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun appears for just an hour on the average December day. Then, after enduring this for 8 long months, residents are rewarded with a brief 70-day intermission when the snow melts, revealing the city's bright Soviet-era buildings underneath. But why does the city exist at all? What kind of person would move here? Initially, the kind who didn't have a choice. Prisoners. Chosen precisely for its isolation, the town was once home to one of the largest and most notorious of the Soviet Union's forced labor camps. Later, after Stalin's death and the end of the Gulag, Moscow invested billions of rubles transforming distant Arctic settlements like Vorkuta into shining, triumphant symbols of the empire. These towns, some, though not all in Siberia, were usually designed around a single industry, sometimes even a single factory. In Vorkuta, that industry was coal mining. Further south, another one produces asbestos. In fact, the town is named after the known carcinogen, which it still mines to this day. In total, there are about 300 Russian monotowns, of which Vorkuta is neither the furthest north, most remote, nor even the coldest. Take, for example, Norilsk, a nickel mine masquerading as a city of 200,000 people. Entry is strictly off-limits to foreigners, which may be a good thing, considering it's one of the world's most polluted cities. Its hazy, brown air and toxic, discolored water make Vorkuta, by comparison, look like Disneyland. Despite this, thousands packed their bags and cheerfully moved to places like Norilsk and Vorkuta in the 70s and 80s, thanks to the Soviet system of social welfare. Although the retirement age was set very generously at just 55 for women and 60 for men, you could retire even earlier and collect an even larger pension if you met certain conditions. Conditions like working in a mine, or, better yet, working in a mine, in the middle of nowhere. That placed Vorkuta right in the bullseye of the Venn diagram. Young Russians could move to the Arctic, do a few years of hard labor, and then retire early down on the Crimean beach. But all that came to an end on Christmas Day, 1991. The collapse of the Soviet Union meant the collapse of the entire economic model on which these monotowns were based. Suddenly, these mines, factories, and power plants were thrown out to the wolves, forced to fend for themselves on the global market. After a lifetime of artificial state support, how could they possibly compete? So what happened next was as predictable as it was tragic. Bankruptcies led to layoffs. Layoffs led to poverty, poverty to crime, and crime to mass migration. A quarter of the Vorkuta fled in the 4 years between 1998 and 2002. Meanwhile, the 1998 financial crisis had reduced the value of Russian pensions by nearly 50%. Are you curious about how oligarchs managed to stay in power in Russia? Let me tell you a little secret. They can do almost anything, but there's one red line they never cross: excessive layoffs. Shutting down an unprofitable factory in a politically sensitive area could easily result in developing a dangerous habit of falling out of windows. When times are tough, oligarchs try every possible solution before resorting to layoffs, such as deferring paychecks, slowing down recruitment, or giving workers unplanned extended holidays. To keep the baseline dissatisfaction low, the Kremlin directly subsidizes monotowns, and in 2010 alone, $846 million were allocated to 27 towns. However, Putin also knows how to incentivize voters before an important election. For instance, pensions have significantly increased since the year 2000, doubling between 2012 and 2022. Though the average amount is only $222 a month, it's still a substantial sum for a country where the mean annual income is around $8,000. For 93% of its 46 million pensioners, this is the only thing keeping them from extreme poverty. It's no wonder that calling these retirees single-issue voters is an understatement. They either receive these pensions or they starve. This makes up 1/3 of the whole country, and Putin's extraordinarily high approval should come as no surprise. However, Putin's formula for high employment, rising pensions, and social harmony is deceiving. Beneath this band-aid, the infection has been getting worse, a lot worse. To understand why, let's take a brief step back. The way pensions work is that one group pays into a giant pool of money, and another group withdraws from the same pool. In other words, it requires a balance of payers and payees. Before the Soviet Union collapsed, the balance looked like this. The 1991 population broke down by age, with the young at the bottom and the old on top. If we combine everyone aged 20 to 54 into one contributor group and anyone older into a single recipient group, we can compare the 1991 balance to the 2021 balance. The Soviet Union was playing welfare on easy mode with much fewer recipients. However, immediately after its fall, the number of new births collapsed. For the last 32 years, Russia has gotten considerably older, tilting pensions off balance, with 44% more recipients and slightly fewer contributors. The math doesn't add up, and there's no doubt Putin knew this, but confronting the root cause would mean risking a larger, potentially regime-threatening version of what happened back in 2004. So he waited and waited, and waited until the inevitable could be delayed no longer. To regain balance, the recipient group had to shrink, and the contributor group had to grow, which meant Putin had to do what he vowed never to do 13 years earlier on television: raise the retirement age. However, this time he had a plan. On June 14, 2018, while Russian soccer fans were cheering their defeat of Saudi Arabia on the opening day of the World Cup, Putin made his move. The retirement age was quietly increased from 60 to 65 for men and from 55 to 63 for women. This one change made the Russian retirement age go from one of the world's most generous, unchanged since its establishment by Joseph Stalin in the early 1900s, to one of the world's least generous. These changes were implemented much faster than in most countries. For instance, the United States is raising its retirement age by just 2 years in comparison. However, despite these efforts, there are still concerns about the sustainability of the pension system in Japan. One issue is the declining birth rate, which means there will be fewer workers to support an increasingly aging population. Additionally, there is a trend of more people leaving the workforce early, which means they will have fewer years to contribute to the pension system. This could lead to a situation where there are not enough people paying into the system to support those who are retired. To address these concerns, the Japanese government is exploring various options, such as increasing the use of robotics and artificial intelligence in industries to improve productivity and offset the declining workforce. They are also considering increasing the participation of women and older workers in the workforce to boost the number of contributors to the pension system. Did you know that women in Russia outnumber men 3 to 1 by the time they reach age 70? It's a startling statistic, and one that speaks to a larger issue facing the country. The reality is that Russian men have a significantly shorter life expectancy than women, due to a combination of factors including poor healthcare, physically demanding jobs, and high levels of alcohol consumption. While life expectancy has improved in recent years, it's still a major issue for men in Russia. In fact, the average male life expectancy is only 66 years today, with rural areas faring even worse. Take Norilsk, for example, where the life expectancy is a mere 59 years, and likely lower for men who work in nickel mines. This means that the average resident in Norilsk has a retirement of -6 years, and even the average Russian man can only expect to retire for 1 year. This is a problem that has been brewing for decades, and one that the government has been struggling to address. The 2018 change to the pension system was met with widespread anger and protests, as many Russians saw it as yet another blow to their already tenuous financial situation. The reality, however, is that the demographic and fiscal problems facing Russia are only getting worse. The aging population means that there are fewer young people to support the growing number of retirees. This puts a strain on the pension system and creates a precarious situation for the government. While Putin has managed to maintain a high approval rating despite numerous challenges, including election fraud and corruption, pensions are the one issue that seems to move the needle. The social contract that underpins the modern Russian state relies heavily on pensions. Take them away, and the entire system falls apart. This puts Putin in a difficult position as he tries to find a way to balance the needs of retirees with the economic realities facing the country. It's a problem that's not unique to Russia. Across Europe, pension protests are becoming more and more common as people realize that the current system is unsustainable. But the situation in Russia is particularly challenging, given the country's unique political and economic circumstances. The good news is that there are steps that can be taken to address the issue. By investing in healthcare, education, and job training programs, the government can help to create a stronger, healthier, and more productive population. This will help to offset the impact of an aging demographic and ensure that future generations are better equipped to handle the challenges that lie ahead. At the same time, individuals can take steps to prepare for their own retirement. By saving more and investing wisely, they can ensure that they have the financial resources they need to live a comfortable and fulfilling life in their later years. Ultimately, the key to solving the pension crisis in Russia and beyond is to recognize that it's a complex problem that requires a multifaceted solution. By working together and taking a holistic approach, we can create a brighter future for all. In conclusion, the issue of pensions in Russia is a complex and challenging problem that requires urgent attention from the government. With an aging population and a shrinking workforce, the country is facing a demographic crisis that could have far-reaching consequences for its economy and social stability. Putin and his administration must find innovative and sustainable solutions to address this issue and ensure the continued support of the Russian people. Moreover, the use of advanced technologies such as large language models can play a significant role in finding solutions to such complex problems. By leveraging the power of these tools, we can better understand the challenges at hand and devise effective strategies to address them. It is up to us, as individuals and as a society, to work together to create a brighter and more secure future for all. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out my other videos on my channel where we talk about all economic trends, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to encourage us.